We Europeans tend to be a bit skeptical about each other. We in Finland have urban legends how the Swedes are all about. We all know how are the Belgians, the Britons, the Greek people, Polish and so on. And then, yes, we know that this is not the true story, what we are joking about or making skeptical comments about some nations' ability to handle the economy or cook good food or whatever that is. But actually why this is an important point is that that prevents us sometimes on trusting each other better and working better and more effectively together. All in all, this is a question about European Union and its future developments where we would need to have a deeper integration to battle climate change, inequalities, refugees, to improve our internal markets, our competitive edge towards the Asian markets and you name it. But certainly this is a big challenge on security and defense area. We have talked about deepening and improving the European security politics and defense for a very long time. You as professionals and semi-professionals certainly know the discussions about Western European Union on alliance about defense or cybersecurity or many of these discussions. But the actions have been rather limited for quite some time. The exception is this election period and especially the last year, where we actually are seeing a significant steps forward in European security and defense policy. Quite often, for example, in Finland, we are debating whether to be a member on NATO or not. And by this debate, we sort of sideline many times too often the fact that we would need to have a better integrated and deeper European security politics and defense. To be frank, to have a NATO as a NATO to operate in European borders would mean that it is a global crisis. And a significant number of threats and crises definitely fall under this category. And this is, as you know, widely known, both in East and West, in different parts of the world, so it is not our common secret only in Europe. And that means that we are rather naked, powerless in this kind of a regional crisis events. And actually, we as Europeans would have one of the world's most powerful and biggest and more effective armies and defense capacities, if we would have that. But now when it is scattered all around on member states, that is not the case. And then what we would need to actually do is to gradually intensify the security and defense policies. And if I start with the defense, that means that we would have a upgraded and integrated military capacity procurements and research and development. That, by the way, would save us quite a lot of money if we would jointly purchase our capacities, be it on air, water or on ground. Then it would mean that we would need to take next significant steps forward to integrate our command and education and schooling systems on military. We would need to have an integrated command and control systems that are on the backbone on all people working in armies and serving on their ranks. And that would mean more effective ability to act. And thirdly, and this is going to be the biggest challenge in our member state, we would need to have a European-wide control and command center who would have the ability to command and control the troops and the equipment up to a certain level. Because if you think of crisis and all of each and every of the member states deciding and in quite often the case pondering on their parliaments whether to take part or not to take a part, and if we take a part, what kind of equipment or armament or people we would send. The crisis certainly can't be very rapid to get everybody on board. And then if we really would like to supervise our air or water, or just to make a presence on the ground in our borders, that would mean that there should be the ability with one single decision center to move up a certain amount of European Air Force or submarines, or that matter, the troops within very rapid action framework. This is going to be a very tough decision and discussion in national parliaments and of course then on national politics. But without that, we do not have the presence and the capacity to act when that might be needed. And moreover, and what is more important, this is the signal, the message in possible crisis outside of the Europe of our own capacity to act if that would be necessary. Then of course we have quite a whole array of new kind of threats. Actually, they are not very new kinds of threats because this kind of a cyber security or false news actually is called propaganda in old days. But the means are definitely new. And we would need to have more centered, focused and better resourced European centers of cybersecurity, of having the ability to have the information, to act, to correct and to intervene. And of course the cybersecurity is not only the false news, it is the more digitalized we are going to be, it is the essence of our societies. Just think of our hospitals, traffic, our security systems, or you name it. If someone would attack them and take them down or under their controls and holds, we wouldn't be able to survive that for very many days and in many cases very many hours. That would create chaos, a lot of catastrophes and in worst of the cases collapse of the whole nations and societies. So this is an issue we would need to take very seriously, put lots of more efforts on understanding, creating new safety nets, on being on safe side of data security and on digital security and having the double systems. And that needs to be on capacity-wise European knowledge, European capacity and a European buffering systems. Then of course there are that kind of other kinds of threats that we would need to be able to act upon. For example, there might be not only refugee crisis, what we have seen, but sudden, very huge scale movements of the people. Climate change probably is going to increase the disaster risk. That has an impact on, of course, on the refugees, but on the whole, the ability of functioning ability of the societies. And the environmental risks, named the state of the Baltic Sea or environmental catastrophes of large-scale oil spills or chemical spills or microplastics could be that one kind of an issue in the future. We would need that kind of a bigger capacity to act on these questions also. And I just would like to remind you about another factor, even though this most important part and bulk of this debate is this kind of hard security and defense. We still need to put a lot and strong effort on soft security, on human security, on conflict prevention, on strengthening law and order, civil society, democracy, and interconnectedness, not only among the European member states, but across our borders. That needs to be a very bold and clear strategy, because with this existing crisis, it's hard to act together with Russia. But Russia is a big country in our neighboring area, like Turkey is, like Caucasian area is. And it is better to build a mutual common understanding, link some cooperation and pathways to that kind of a mutual cooperative existence and solving problems together. Namely, you can't solve the Baltic Sea's environmental hazards, risks or emissions without a good cooperation with Russia and the trafficking of ships or the sewage water treatment systems. So it's always, even though it's hard, better to build friends and friendships than enemies. And what I'm actually pleading to you is that this working together, trusting different nationalities inside the Europe and then creating the bridges outside the Europe is a very acute debate where we would need definitely strongly your message, your discussions and your interventions with people, with your own member state members when we are coming up to next elections and way long way from there also, about convincing it's better to act together than stay alone. It's better to build friendships instead of isolation. It's better to build conflict prevention than threats. But it's better to build a own capacity to act than just to rely on good fortune or the others supporting and solving your problems. Thank you and have very good and inspiring days here, or actually, because I'm here in Brussels, there in Finland.